The time by Carrie Chris is 6 p.m. Time for CBX Business News. The business news headlines is brought to you by QMX Wealth Management, making more possible.
AI Power Play. Good evening and welcome to CBX Business News for Monday, November 3, 2025. I'm Rachelle Moncrief. Thanks for joining us. Coming up in the newscast, locally, inflation pressures loom as Jamaica eyes a 2-year recovery after Hurricane Melissa. On the regional front, the IMF says Latin America and the Caribbean remains resilient but faces debt and growth challenges. And over on the global stage, OpenAI taps Amazon in a $38 billion cloud deal to power the next wave of AI innovation. Stay tuned as we unpack these stories and more right after the
Introducing the Corporate Services Unit, your go-to experts for corporate secretarial solutions. We offer statutory compliance, efficient minute taking, registered office address services, management of board and members meetings, setup and maintenance of corporate registers. Stay ahead with our proactive approach to new regulations. We operate under the Trust and Corporate Service Provider, licensed to the JCSD Trustee Services Limited. We're here to simplify your corporate journey, no matter the size of your company. Contact the Corporate Service Unit today and let's streamline your compliance journey together, because your success is our business.
Me grew up and see my granny save her money under her mattress.
Exactly. Okay. Your grandmother house never burned down?
No, how you reach that, so? That was a one-off thing.
That could have happened to anybody. That's why you must put your money in a financial institution and protect it.
What if the bank crash?
Well, that's where JDIC comes in.
What you mean?
JDIC is a financial safety net which provides coverage for your money in case your financial institution fails.
Explain that to me.
Alright, because of the JDIC deposit insurance scheme, once you put your money into a financial institution like a bank or building society, you can get coverage of up to a maximum of $1.2 million per deposit of your financial institution if it should fail. And for even more information, you can visit their new website at www.jdic.org, and you can follow the social media platforms for the latest information.
JDIC, protecting deposits for you and me.
We're here to open a savings account for my son John. I really want him to start saving and managing his own money.
And I need for safe to visit my father in New York.
Okay, based on what you said and our risk assessment, he will qualify for simplified customer due diligence requirements. I'll need your ID, proof of income, TRN, and John's ID as well.
Okay, here you go.
Opening an account is easier than you think using simplified customer due diligence requirements, also called CDD.
We get the big contract. 50,000 units a month for 3 years. Great. Who need help?
If you are a business owner that requires capital for the expansion of your business, talk to a registered broker today to find out more about listing your company on the Jamaica Stock Exchange, an efficient alternative to other financing options.
Thank God for the Jamaica Stock Exchange Junior Market.
The Jamaica Stock Exchange, providing a fair, efficient, and transparent stock market.
Fesco started from 5 shareholders who believed that they could execute a fuel company as good as or as better than any multinational. The director shareholders always believe that the dealers within our network should be owners of the company. They believe that staff should be owners of the company. And specifically also believe that the public should become shareholders. That cannot be facilitated by a bank loan. Our experience so far has translated into additional customers. Our transparency has allowed us to access credit easier and at better rates. So if you're a private company thinking about growing your profits, having better access to capital, I really think you should consider listing on the junior or the main market. Go ahead, have that conversation as soon as possible. We did it and we're very happy.
The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean flavors and fragrances, tease the senses, and Pulse Investments.
Welcome back to CBX Business News. We begin with a major update on Jamaica's power restoration efforts following Hurricane Melissa. Jamaica Public Service JPS says it has restored electricity to just over 206,000 customers, crossing the halfway mark in the national push to bring power back to homes and businesses. JPS President and CEO Hugh Grant says the company has moved from 77% of customers without service to just under half still without electricity. JPS has now achieved 95% restoration across Kingston, St. Andrew, Portmore, and St. Thomas, and 90% in St. Catherine.
As of this morning, we restored 206,000 customers. At the time of the incident, we had 550,000 customers approximately out. So we moved from 77% of customers without service to a significant milestone of having just under 50% of customers without service.
To speed up recovery, Grant says JPS is bringing in 100 additional line workers from Canada and the United States, along with 50 bucket trucks and 10 digger trucks to strengthen field operations.
Based on our retainer contracts with companies in North America, from Canada and from the USA, and those 100 overseas line workers are expected to be here by the end of the week. We also are bringing in additional equipment because our local resources in terms of bucket trucks and pole digger trucks are exhausted. So we're bringing in on barges additional bucket trucks, more than 50 bucket trucks, more than 10 digger trucks, so that when the workers come in, they have the equipment required so that they can safely and optimally restore customers.
That was President and CEO of JPS, Hugh Grant. The Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean, CAF, has approved a U.S. $670,000 emergency grant to support Jamaica's humanitarian and recovery efforts following the catastrophic passage of Hurricane Melissa. In a letter to Prime Minister Andrew Holness, CAF's executive president Sergio Diaz Granados expressed solidarity with Jamaica, calling the island a valued member of the CAF family, and pledged to stand firmly alongside the government and people as they rebuild. CAF's support goes beyond funding. Through its regional network, the institution helped facilitate bilateral emergency assistance from El Salvador, which has airlifted 37 tons of humanitarian supplies and deployed more than 300 trained personnel to bolster Jamaica's national response operations. CAF's intervention aligns with Jamaica's broader disaster risk financing framework, complementing resources from multilateral partners like the World Bank, Inter-American Development Bank IDB, and the International Monetary Fund IMF. Jamaica's economy is bracing for short-term inflationary pressures as rebuilding begins in the wake of Hurricane Melissa. Local economist Keenan Faulkner told CBX News that tourism, one of Jamaica's largest foreign exchange earners, faces a recovery timeline of up to 2 years as hotels, airports, and supporting infrastructure gradually return to full capacity.
Recovery in the tourist sector and the wider economy could take at least 18 to 24 months. Foreign exchange earnings will decline. However, the impact of job losses can be mitigated with short-term relief, as it was during the pandemic.
He noted that the government's catastrophe fund will help provide quick emergency relief, but it's not designed to finance the country's long-term reconstruction needs.
Jamaica's catastrophe bond and other disaster risk financing instruments are intended to provide quick emergency relief and to minimize the disruption in the budget by having to rearrange and reprioritize expenditure. So they are not designed to enable longer-term reconstruction. Hurricane Melissa has reinforced the importance of having sufficient buffers that can afford the country enough policy space to navigate crises. The government must continue to embed fiscal and physical resilience that will allow us to recover from shocks more quickly.
That was local economist Keenan Faulkner. In other news, the Bank of Jamaica and the Jamaica Bankers Association are moving urgently to restore cash access and full banking services in communities hardest hit by Hurricane Melissa. Widespread disruptions to electricity, telecommunications, and transport continue to hamper financial operations island-wide. While some banks have reopened in less affected areas, many are still facing damaged ATMs, blocked roads, and severe staff dislocation, security risks, and the absence of power in several parishes have further delayed the resumption of key banking services. To ease the strain on customers, the BOJ has suspended all fees charged to banks for real-time fund transfers and settlements through its RTGS system, a benefit it expects institutions will pass on to their clients. The central bank is also holding talks with deposit-taking institutions on other temporary relief measures for residents and businesses in the worst affected zones. Meanwhile, in a further update, Ministry of Energy, Transport and Telecommunications Daryl Vaz says satellite internet provider Starlink is assisting with efforts to reconnect bank ATMs across the island.
I indicate the ATMs. We have gotten lists from the Jamaica Bankers Association. We're working with them through Starlink to connect the ATMs in those affected areas, and we expect to get at least 10 of them up this week. So we are ticking the boxes of all of the essential services that are going to be required.
That was Minister of Energy, Transport and Telecommunications, Daryl Vaz. We move to the latest updates from the JSE equities. In Monday's trading session, the JSE market activity resulted in the trading of 113 stocks, of which 30 advanced, 67 declined, and 16 traded firm. The winners: Atlantic Hardware and Plumbing Company, Pulse Investments, Epley Caribbean Property Fund SCC, and QWI Investments. The losers: Knutsford Express Services, Cargo Handlers, 138 Student Living Jamaica, and Medical Disposables and Supplies. The main index declined by 3,047.82 points or 0.94% to close at 319,772.93 points. The junior market index declined by 94.85 points or 2.76% to close at 3,340.03 points.
And it's time for Market Education Feature, brought to you by CariChris, Regional Ratings, Global Standard.
In today's Market Education Feature, we're discussing the term contingency clause. A contingency clause is a condition in a contract that makes the agreement dependent on a specific event or action taking place. If that condition isn't met, the other party is no longer obligated to proceed. These clauses are common in real estate contracts where buyers may need to secure financing, complete a home inspection, or get an appraisal before finalizing a deal. In essence, a contingency clause acts as a safeguard, allowing a party to withdraw if certain requirements aren't fulfilled. However, the party who benefits from the clause also has the right to waive it.
The Market Education Feature was brought to you by CariChris, Regional Ratings, Global Standards.
And that's it for the local news segment. Please stay with us. The regional news is up next.
The local news is brought to you by Derriman Trading, better from the start. Development Bank of Jamaica, facilitating economic growth and development. Caribbean Flavors and Fragrances, tease the senses. And Pulse Investments.
Wealth is not simply counted in dollars or cents, but in the time we spend with love, in love, giving love. Wealth is not simply a means to an end. It is the means to live out loud. Wealth is more than money. It's about family, the memories you create, the legacy you leave behind, and your ability to enjoy life in the moment. It's also about seeing the QMAX possibilities and seizing investment opportunities to achieve the future you want and deserve. Which is why QMAX Wealth will focus on your investments so you can experience more. Because true wealth is truly more. To start investing today, call 876-926-7767.
Welcome back. And now for the regional business news. The International Monetary Fund says Latin America and the Caribbean remain resilient despite persistent global challenges. Director for the Western Hemisphere Department of the IMF, Rodrigo Valdez, is reporting steady growth and easing inflation across the region. However, he says debt and productivity gaps continue to weigh on the region's outlook.
Despite global headwinds, growth in the region remains stable, supported by solid labor markets and exports. Second, inflation is gradually converging to targets, but is not there yet, unfortunately, in a few countries. Third, public debt continues to rise. That's not good. Fourth, medium-term growth remains too low for what is needed.
The IMF's latest regional economic outlook highlights that solid labor markets and strong exports have helped keep regional growth stable.
To further strengthen resilience, governments need to move forward on needed fiscal consolidation and stay committed to strong monetary policy frameworks. Also, lifting up medium-term growth will require taking advantage of further trade integration and boosting productivity through reforms that improve resource allocation and create incentives for firms to grow. Read more about the challenges and opportunities of the economies in Latin America and the Caribbean in the IMF's Regional Economic Outlook.
That was Director for the Western Hemisphere Department of the IMF, Rodrigo Valdez. The government of Guyana has taken another decisive step toward global investment diversification, this time partnering with Saudi Arabia's XAB Group to explore new opportunities across infrastructure, technology, and sustainable development. The Memorandum of Understanding, signed on the sidelines of the Future Investment Initiative, was witnessed by President Dr. Irfan Ali and sealed by the Minister of Public Service, Government Efficiency and Implementation, Zulfikar Ali, and XAB's Chief Executive Officer. Officials say the partnership cements Saudi XAB's role as a trusted partner in Guyana's economic transformation, paving the way for joint ventures, knowledge transfer, and capital inflows into strategic sectors. Minister Ali described the MOU as an exciting step forward in identifying high-impact investment initiatives that drive shared economic growth. He says the partnership reflects Guyana's determination to leverage global cooperation in building out infrastructure and diversifying its economy beyond oil. In other news, Montserrat is putting disaster risk at the center of its development agenda. The island has launched its first comprehensive disaster management country work program, a 5-year plan designed to cut vulnerabilities, strengthen institutions, and unlock new funding for resilience. At a handover ceremony in Montserrat recently, officials, regional partners, and community stakeholders gathered to mark what they called a significant juncture in the island's disaster journey. Dr. Tiffany Skerritt Fleming says the new country work program runs from April 2025 to March 2030.
This 5-year program spans from April 2025 to March 2030. And it is the result of a robust, multi-phase process that included detailed audit, extensive stakeholder consultations, and a review of relevant assessments. As HE would have alluded to, Montserrat is no stranger to disaster, and we've been trying our very best to prepare for what is to come next. We're hoping that this hurricane season spares us, but we never know, and so we remain prepared.
It's now time for news from the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 19 securities, of which 4 advanced, 9 declined, and 6 traded firm. Today's winners are NCB Financial Group, National Flour Mills, Trinidad Cement, and National Enterprises, while leading the losers are First Citizens Group Financial Holdings, CIBC Caribbean Bank, Republic Financial Holdings, and Unilever Caribbean. Trading activity resulted in the following movements. The All-TNT Index declined by 4.02 points to close at 1,381.46. The Composite Index advanced by 0.03 points to close at 955.93. The Cross-Listed Index advanced by 0.62 points to close at 70.04. The SME Index remained at 97.70. And we take a short break, but please do stay with us. The international news segment is up.
So much book you need for high school?
I'll show you how to make sure you have all the money for my books and even some extra. It's called budgeting, Dad. Making a budget is the most important thing you can do to track your money. It keeps a record of how much you make, how much you spend, where you spend it, and most importantly, how much you can save. Write down all your income, write down all your expenses, see where you can cut down and allot more money to more important things, like saving.
In international news, OpenAI has signed a 7-year US $38 billion agreement with Amazon Web Services, AWS, to access hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA GPUs, marking its largest ever cloud infrastructure investment. The partnership will give OpenAI massive compute capacity to train and deploy new AI models, following its recent corporate restructuring that granted it greater operational independence. For Amazon, the deal is a major vote of confidence in AWS after investors feared it was falling behind Microsoft and Google in the race to dominate the AI cloud. Shares of Amazon surged to an all-time high, adding nearly US $140 billion in market value. Scaling frontier AI requires massive, reliable compute, says OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, calling the partnership a cornerstone for the next era of AI innovation. And while OpenAI is expanding its AI reach through cloud partnerships, another tech giant is taking a different route, locking in data center capacity through strategic outsourcing. Microsoft has agreed to a US $9.7 billion 5-year deal with data center operator IREN, securing access to NVIDIA's GB300 chips and expanding its AI infrastructure footprint. The deal aims to ease the global computing crunch that has slowed AI deployment and limited Microsoft's ability to meet demand for products like Copilot and ChatGPT integrations. Under the agreement, Dell Technologies will supply IREN with about US $5.8 billion worth of equipment, while Microsoft prepays part of the contract to help finance the build-out. Shares of IREN jumped nearly 25% to a record high, while Dell gained modestly on expectations of increased server sales. From big tech's race for computing power to the global tug-of-war over crude production, oil markets are entering the new year on uncertain ground. OPEC and its allies have paused oil output increases for the first quarter of 2026, following a push from Russia, which faces new US and European sanctions, limiting its ability to boost exports. The decision, agreed at Sunday's OPEC Plus meeting, also suits Saudi Arabia, which expects demand to slow early next year. Analysts warn the move reflects fears of a looming oil glut, with the International Energy Agency projecting a surplus of up to 4 million barrels per day, or about 4% of global demand. Oil prices held steady following the announcement as traders weighed the group's cautious approach against weakening demand signals. And finally, from energy policy to economic strain, a U.S. court order is forcing Washington to act fast to prevent millions of Americans from going hungry amid the ongoing government shutdown. The Trump administration says it will partially restore food assistance for millions of Americans after a federal judge ordered the government to use US $5.2 billion in emergency funds for the SNAP program. The order came after the program's first ever lapse in payments during the federal shutdown, affecting roughly 42 million low-income citizens. The U.S. Department of Agriculture says the funds will only cover about half of November benefits, with with states warning that system changes could delay distribution for weeks or months. Democrats led by Senator Amy Klobuchar have called for full restoration of funds, accusing the administration of playing politics with hunger. And that's it for the international segment of the newscast. The news recap is coming up on the other side of top stories. In the local news, inflation pressures loom as Jamaica eyes two-year recovery after Hurricane Melissa. Regionally, IMF says Caribbean remains resilient but faces debt and growth challenges. And internationally, OpenAI taps Amazon in $38 billion cloud deal to power next wave of AI. Those were the stories making today's CBX Evening News. On behalf of the entire production team, I'm Rochelle Moncrief. Thanks for watching CBX, your region, your business, your source.
Beckford. You're watching CBS.